Welcome back to the Drive-In Asylum double feature, and thank you for joining our second segment. My special guest this week is Re-Gor from the Then Is Now podcast, and we just finished watching Re-Gor's first viewing of Raw Meat, aka Deathline, from 1972, directed by Gary Sherman. So, Re-Gor, what did you think?
I liked it. I liked it a lot. It's definitely a hidden gem. It was very atmospheric, and any movie that starts off with a chick in the subway kicking a guy in the nuts and taking his money, works for me.
Those hooligans.
What?
Those hooligans in the tube. You can never trust them.
And it's funny because now I was in London back in 2000 for about a week, and I was wondering walking into this movie, and it confirmed it. The actual subway, when you go in there as a regular passenger, it's clean. It's so clean you could probably eat off the floor. That's how clean that thing is. It's not until you go deeper into where the cannibals live that it's a little dirty. Could use a sprucing.
So you're saying that was or wasn't accurate?
It was. I was surprised, back in the early 70s, how clean it looked when you were where the regular people were,
Yeah.
And it's funny. I was looking at some of the comments here, and some of the people said, yeah, it was a bummer of an ending. I did not expect that kind of an ending to this movie. And I did not expect the villain, the man, as he was called, or also the cannibal, to be portrayed so sympathetically. I thought that was really fascinating for a movie of this type.
Yeah, they showed you exactly why he was doing what he was doing, and that he wasn't just like this mindless monster. He had he had a lady, and looked like she was pregnant.
Yes.
And she died, and who wouldn't feel bad after something like that happened? But it has to be said, they were murdering. They were murdering, and there were all those decomposing corpses that they were eating in there, along with their rat friends.
Well, as one of the viewers, Nora, says, a man's got to eat.
I don't. I don't disagree. Uh,
One
but
thing I really liked. Oh, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead, and then I'll say.
no, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say one thing I really liked about this movie was that um, they don't really fully explain it. Like if you probably have to watch this a couple times to really get everything. I mean, I've read the synopses online, so I know what's going on now. But like they don't really tell you about, like, they give you it in nuggets in the movie. Like at the very beginning, the detective has the information about the subway train that, back in the 1890s it collapsed or whatever, but women worked with the men, so they kind of put that all together so you could imagine how they could procreate and continue living, even if it was this bizarro kind of X-Files, you know uh, inbred kind of way. And so you really have to kind of put the pieces together. I like that. I don't like movies that just, like, as much as I love Psycho, the exposition at the end kind of ruins the movie. It's like I like where you have to kind of put the pieces together, and if you go back and you go, oh, right, okay, and they do explain a little bit more at the end. I mean, am I wrong here?
No, I agree with you, and I think that's probably most serious film critics have a problem with the ending of Psycho because of that very reason that you mentioned. Is like it's really
Yeah,
more explanation than is necessary.
right.
But it's sort of on the one hand, it's talking down to the audience because it's saying like, well, the audience could never figure out why Norman was wearing a wig. Uh, I guess they were too worried that think he just liked wearing women's clothes and not be able to understand why he was doing it. But this film, yeah, you're right. It just sort of like it makes you, and the police are totally unconcerned with solving this crime. I might
Right.
add. So they just keep you sort of learn things as they piece things together too. But this did have one of those explanations at the end, after all. In the tunnel when they went down there and found him, they sort of gave a verbal explanation as to what was going on there. But I think it's better the less you know.
Exactly, exactly. And it's the old adage, show don't tell. And I think they did that in this movie. They really showed you everything. All the pieces are there. You just got to kind of put it together, you know.
Thanks to everybody for coming back for our second segment. And we remind you to smash that like button for us, smash the love button, and think about
Hit
that for a
the
few
love
minutes.
button.
And also share if you really want to be kind and generous, because the more likes we get, the more people see the videos, etc., etc. I always share this on my personal Facebook page. There's never one single like on my personal Facebook page, so I don't think, surely I have at least one or two friends that would click like on my video, even if they're not going to watch it. But I think Facebook doesn't serve it the way that it serves other posts. Like when you're sharing something, it
Right.
doesn't like it as much as when you post something original.
Yeah.
Who
I agree.
knows? Oh, sorry, Meta. I should change that. I should use my proper terminology. Uh, I don't want to offend anybody in Facebook land out there and get the broadcast stopped.
Oh God, yeah, no kidding. You'll end up in Facebook jail.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody was just talking about it. Sam said he got a warning from Facebook because he responded to a comment, yes.
Really?
That was it. That was all he typed. And
That's weird.
Chris Moore was commenting. The actor Chris Moore. I was looking at his Facebook, and he commented that he said something like "good deal" or something, and Facebook sent him a warning. Or can't wait. That's what he said. Can't wait. Facebook didn't like
Weird.
it.
It was funny, and going into this movie, you had mentioned that it was difficult to hear what or to understand what Donald Pleasance was saying through the movie. So I put the subtitles on, which in the past 2 years, I'm gonna say I generally watch everything with subtitles now, whether it's English or not, just because a lot of times the subtitles will pick up stuff going on in the background, whether it's the radio or characters talking or whatever. And so I like to hear all
Yeah.
those little things that I might miss, or even if it's like you're watching it and you go, "Oh wait, what did he say?" Um, the YouTube subtitles on this sucked ass. They were the worst. In fact, I understood what they were saying far more than what the subtitles were telling me. I'll give you a good one.
Well, those are just translated by a robot. They're not
I
actual.
suppose, because there was one scene where the young couple there, the guy's about to leave the house and the girl goes, "Don't you want any breakfast?" And the subtitle says, "Don't you want any breasts?"
See,
It's
that
like, all
made
right,
the movie better.
I suppose, yeah. It was just bad, but and one thing about this movie too that I thought was really kind of interesting, especially around the time period that it was made. Now, this was before The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue, because that was 1974, but we were still coming off of the whole Charles Manson thing, the whole fear of hippies, and Donald Pleasance. He's interviewing the young guy. I can't think of Alan or something. I can't think of his name. About the
The
missing.
actor's name is Alan.
Yeah, okay. I can't remember the character's name, but he's interviewing him about the missing officer of the British Empire, and Manfred, I think, was the guy's name.
Yeah.
And he says, first he says, "Oh, why don't you go? There's probably a protest you need to join in on it." And then he goes, "And get your hair cut." And those two lines really spoke to what people were feeling at that time. There was that fear of hippies. There was that whole um what do you call it? Not the result, but the aftermath of the Charles Manson murders and the hippies and all that stuff. And it kind of spoke
So
to that
everybody was
feeling.
looking at it suspiciously. Everyone
Yes.
was suspect,
Yeah.
which they already were. That already existed even before Charles Manson, and there was this sense of, the older folks. It was just a generation gap,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
Charles Manson made it dangerous. So yeah, there is sort of like, you mentioned Living Dead at Manchester Morgan. There was the police officer played by Arthur Kennedy in that one, which was he did not like hippies at all. Let's just say that and leave it right
Yes.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a whole like almost subplot in that movie. Oh
This
man,
one
but
did have some interesting things going on with that, and I also I really enjoyed, well, naturally Donald Pleasance, but all of the dialects that were going on in this film, like the subtitles were a must. The official subtitles, though, don't listen to the AI
yeah.
translated subtitles. Dustin said the ones for this show are fabulous. I have to go back and watch it now with the subtitles on and see what everyone's talking about. But yeah, it was really interesting the way the one guy that went down into the subway, there was the trio of guys that got murdered by the man. The second guy sounded like he had just been sucking on a helium tank. His voice was so high, and so was Pleasance's. It was like all this like, pitched up, high pitched voices coming out of these dudes, which was really interesting.
And the whole scene with Christopher Lee, it was obvious. It was so obvious that they were shot separately, because of that. And just speaking to what you just said, it almost seemed like in that scene, Donald Pleasance and his subordinate there, their voices, like they even looked tiny in the shot. It's like
Yeah,
the director was so worried that Christopher Lee was so tall, and he made them look so small in that shot.
that whole scene's very weird with Christopher Lee. The
Yeah.
whole, like you said, like they look smaller than the furniture
Yes.
when they're walking around, and they look like children inside of, like, going where the adults hang out.
Right. Right.
It was interesting.
It almost the movie almost didn't need that. I feel like they just put that in there just to have Christopher Lee in the movie and as
Of
a
course,
selling point, maybe.
you would too. Admit it.
Yeah. Yeah. I would.
If you had the chance to put Christopher Lee in your movie, you're going to write anything for him to do. Have
That's
him
true.
stop by and buy a newspaper from somebody. Say a
And it
couple
was
lines.
funny. Yeah, it was funny too, though. They had this weird subplot of Donald Pleasance's character being obsessed with his tea, and it just went nowhere.
The one time he offers, by the way, the actor's name is David Ladd, not Alan Ladd. That's the producer's
Right.
name.
Yeah, Alan Ladd was his
What's
father.
going on there with that same last name? But his character's name was Alex, and there was the one scene where Alex was in the police station, and Donald Pleasance offers him tea, and then like 2 sentences later, he tells him to get out.
Yeah.
Like, well, at least give him a chance to drink his tea. I can't remember if he accepted it or not. Probably not. He was
I
more
don't think
worried
so. I
about.
think he ran out.
He was worried about his lady friend. Yeah, that got snatched.
Yeah. Oh my god, the cops were so ineffectual in this movie, as they are in most things. But it was just like, and like, it was all about one-upping the MI5. It wasn't about, solving the crime. It was, well, MI5 is gonna, take it over. We gotta stop it.
Don't forget there was a political angle to this too. There was like Manfred, Mister Manfred Jimsonson. Um, Manfred was, he had some kind of like political scandal that he was a part of. Because remember, we see him in the beginning looking at all those dirty magazines,
And he comes out of a strip club.
so he's living salaciously.
Right, right. And I wonder if that would, because remember we talked about just before this film, we talked about how the director really wanted to make political films, and his scripts weren't selling. So I wonder if that was his way of sort of sneaking that in as a slight, subtext.
I think you're onto something there.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. I mean, and there was one line though the girl has. She goes, Alex says, "Oh, let's go see the French Connection." And she goes, "Oh no, it's too violent."
Yeah,
Too
that's
violent? What?
Patricia. She
Yeah,
doesn't like violent movies. That Patricia.
yeah. She's the worst of the hippies because she doesn't like any kind of violence.
Well, let's talk about the violence in this movie. What did you think? Do you think it's a lot more gory than I remembered?
It was more gory than I thought walking in. Especially you sort of downplayed it when we talked about it earlier. Um, I felt this was. Did you ever see the movie Hell Night with Linda Blair?
Oh, yeah, we did it on the show.
Okay,
We love it.
so I thought it was like that level, although it had a little bit more gore than that movie did. But I felt like it was that level of PG. It wasn't over the top. When they first started showing the dead bodies and all that stuff, yeah, that was really kind of gruesome. I can see how there was. I would actually love to see the stuff that was cut out, that AIP cut, so it could be released in America. Um, but yeah, I just felt that it was the whole film itself, especially the way they portrayed the villain, because he really wasn't a villain. He was just a dude trying to survive. I think I think it was that kind of level for me anyways. It was just this Hell Night sort of, even though I think Hell Night was rated R, but it's
Yeah,
really more of a PG kind of level.
this was rated R too
Yeah.
in theatrically. So
Which in the 70s you could see.
yeah, it really does go further than I thought. Especially that impalement was really shocking. I
With the
didn't
broom?
expect that, how it went completely through him, and that axe to the head or shovel to the head was
Yes.
pretty shocking. Even
Yeah.
though, sometimes HD is not a movie's friend. This was not really, the print I watched wasn't all that HD anyway, but
Right. Same here.
you could see the appliance moving as the actor was like stumbling around. So it wasn't quite as convincing as it could have been, but it was pretty gory. Speaking of let sleeping corpses lie, that also has a very gruesome axe to the head moment in it.
Yes.
That you see just for a split second. It doesn't really linger on it all that much, but
Yeah. But the doctor gets out on the stairs.
yeah, yeah. I love that movie.
Oh yeah, that's such a great movie. And in this one too, there was the scene where the cannibal guy he jumps out and he grabs the girl. I screamed out loud. I do that a lot in movies. I'm terrified at horror movies.
Yeah, that
I
was
love
really
them.
a very underhanded thing that Gary Sherman did there because you expected it to be like, oh, she's going to start looking around and she's going to be realize she's
Right.
alone in the subway and there's going to be a stalking scene. But no, just like bam, he just
Yeah.
grabbed her right then and there.
Scared the crap out of me. I jumped.
Defying expectations left and right, that Gary Sherman.
And what's up with Donald Pleasance's his hat and his coat? They were like way too oversized for him. I think that was done on purpose to be funny.
Well, there was the insinuation that he was sort of like a low class type person, and also he probably didn't care about the way he looked in his clothes, or maybe he didn't have enough money to buy decent fitting clothing.
Maybe. Yeah.
He had
Yeah,
enough
that's
money
true.
for pinball and booze.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was hilarious. That whole scene where they get drunk, I totally believe that they were drunk. He pulled it off, I thought.
It looks very authentic. I wouldn't be surprised if they really were.
If he would have gotten into a fight with Oliver Reed, he would have lost though. Oh
Uh,
man.
Nora had an interesting take on this. That he reminded her of the ending of Night of the Living Dead, where he survived all of that stuff and then was killed. That's true. Although he wasn't, Ben wasn't killing people in the subway and eating them, their dead bodies. So, that's one
Right.
difference between this and the end of Night of the Living Dead. He really was the villain in the film. But everybody's right. I mean, he is very sympathetic, and it is sad
Yeah.
that they didn't at least like capture him and maybe like what could they have done for him? Didn't the doctor say he was going to die anyway because he had the
I th-
plague?
yeah. They kept going on about some kind of septic plague or something, and it was weird because in the subtitles again, they were getting all the technical words right, but I still wasn't getting it, and I wasn't getting what he was saying. Like the subtitles and what he was saying, I didn't understand either one. So I don't know what he was saying. Like throughout when they showed him in that last third of the film, um, I couldn't tell you what the heck he was saying.
Yeah. Uh, the one thing I wanted to ask you, and I'm still not entirely clear on this. They make a reference. I mean, the tunnel cave in happened a long, long time ago.
Yeah,
Wasn't it?
1892.
Right, yeah. So, it had already been like what was that 80 years that it had happened. And so this guy was not one of the originals that was trapped down there. He was the progeny of
Yes.
people that had been trapped in the
Yeah.
tunnel. So he really didn't know anything about living above ground.
Right.
And that I always wondered why he didn't just, I mean, there was a hole to get out into the tube. Like, why didn't he just leave and maybe like try and get help? Did they like living there? Like, was that sort of like their thing? They were into it.
I no, I don't know if it was necessarily that they liked it. I think that was all they knew. Like there's that one scene where he's got the girl, and this was after his wife, whatever you want to call her, the pregnant one, had passed away. The camera kind of pans down, and you see all these dead bodies, and they're wearing clothes of different eras and jewelry of different eras. And they sort of show that again at the end when the cops come in and find it. So I think that they were trapped. And if you happen to wander down there, great, we eat. And that was how it was going on for generations, but they were continually inbreeding, and to the point where I think he may even have had the wherewithal to go, you know what? Even if I got out, I wouldn't know what the hell to do, where the hell to go. So they just kind of kept to their world that they knew. They only stayed with what they knew and what they understood. So that was what I got out of that, was that but then he found the girl, and he thought he could replace his mate, for lack of a better word, and somehow impregnate her. I don't even think he knows or he knew how that worked. I think he just wanted to replace the woman. Does that make sense?
Well, they knew how something worked because she was pregnant.
Right, but I mean, do you ever see the Blue Lagoon? They didn't even know how the hell that happened.
I have seen the Blue Lagoon, both versions.
It's just like, like I think they just kind of figured, oh, well, if I have a woman, then she'll get pregnant. I don't know if I have to do anything.
There is something you have to do, but
Well,
I
yeah,
guess
but
we
I don't
figured
think
it
he
out.
knew that. I think but then he was like trying to talk to her, but she he couldn't articulate and she couldn't understand. So yeah, so I think that he could have gone out. He knew where the exits were. At that point, it was open, but I don't think he wanted to because he was too
I didn't
afraid.
understand why they couldn't speak English. I mean,
Yeah,
the people that were trapped down there could speak English, so they would have learned how to speak English from the people that were already there. But instead, he just sort of was like, the only thing he could say
yeah.
was "mind the doors."
The subtitles trying to say what he was saying. It kept saying, "I know, I know." I'm like, that's not what he's saying. So
Those stupid robots. That's why my Uber always takes me to the wrong place because of mistakes like that. So
now I
anything else?
will. Oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, I was gonna say I just sort of felt like the ending was a little anticlimactic, because
Definitely.
they painted him so sympathetic. There was no way you could have a showdown with good guys and bad guys. You know, it,
There was
it,
just the attack scene on Alex, and even though I thought that Alex really sort of got away easy
yeah,
because he took on those three guys at once and they had weapons.
yeah.
So I don't understand. Maybe it was the girl that had
Well,
him all misty eyed and weak, and
There was a lot of flashlight foo in this movie, to borrow a phrase from Joe Bob Briggs, because he got the crap kicked out of him by those two guys with a flashlight. One of them had a flashlight, and that was the wound he had on his head. And he kept every time someone hit him on the head, he was like, "Oh, the wound, the wound." He wasn't saying that, but and then of course Alex had the flashlight, and he beat the shit out of him with a flashlight.
yeah, and it probably I think it still worked
Yeah,
even after he beat him with it. So and
yeah.
yeah, those mag lights they were real heavy back then, I guess.
Oh, especially the batteries were probably bigger. So
Yeah, that
yeah,
was definitely a D size battery.
I think they were like E size.
So, anything else we should say about Deathline, aka Raw Meat, before we move on to our second feature?
No, I think that's all I get to say. But I liked it. I think it's one of these movies I'd love to see sort of a Blu-ray restoration of this film. I'd love to see it in its pristine colors and all that.
I think there is one.
Okay,
Well, there was definitely a DVD. I'm pretty sure it's been out on Blu-ray.
okay, cool. All right, let's move on.
Okay, so keeping in line with our first feature, which was released originally in 1972, this is also another movie from the early 70s. It was released in Spain in 1971, where it was known as La Noche de los Walpurgos. Pardon my Spanish. Um, La Noche de Walpurgis,
Right.
um, aka Werewolf Shadow, fondly remembered in the United States as The Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman, starring one of my biggest dudes, Paul Naschy,
Yes,
aka Jacinto Molina.
that's right.
Um, so,
And
you're familiar with this film already, right? You've seen this.
absolutely, absolutely. I'm gonna watch it again though because I haven't seen it in a while. But yeah, this is directed by Leon Klimovsky. And he's done a few spaghetti westerns, and he did a bunch of Paul Naschy horror films, including Dr. Jekyll versus the Werewolf, Vengeance of the Zombies, Devil's Possessed, and other good ones like The People Who Owned the Dark. So this
Yeah.
guy knew his way around directing films, and this is a really good one.
The People Who Own the Dark, one of the silent partners who made that film was none other than Sean Cunningham, of Friday the
That's right.
13th fame
Yeah,
and Last House on the Left.
yeah.
And apparently somebody asked him about it years later, and he didn't even remember that he had any involvement in it at all. It's strange that a Leon Klimowski film was somehow produced by Sean Cunningham, partially.
The guy who stole from Bay of Blood doesn't
Yeah, I
remember.
guess absolutely.
Oh
Uh,
man, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going
You're
to
the
say,
guest, Re-Gor.
well, thank you. I mean, Paul Naschy, again, another guy that we could talk for hours about him. Am I allowed to refer viewers to another show at all?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay. If you haven't had a chance, check out on the podcasts. It's called the Naschy Cast, and my buddy Rod Barnett talks about all the Paul Naschy films, and this is where I get all of my information from because they just love Paul Naschy. They love his films. They go beyond Paul Naschy. But anyways, he was considered the Lon Chaney of Spain because he made so many monster movies. He played the Frankenstein monster. He played the Wolfman. He played Dracula. My hands can't even get in the camera there. He was in such films as like Horror Rises from the Tomb, Assignment Terror, Fury of the Wolfman, Count Dracula's Great Love, Vengeance of the Zombies. And we mentioned Blue Eyes of the Broken Doll. He's been in so many amazing films. I mean, Bill, what can you tell me about your experience watching Paul Naschy films?
Wow, I the first time I ever saw him was in Fury of the Wolfman. That was a late night staple in the 70s on like local TV.
Yeah,
I think Chiller Theater showed it. The Chiller Theater from Pittsburgh with
right.
Chili Billy. I think it was on Chili Billy once, and I'm sure I saw it on WOR, one of those super stations. And
Yeah, like Fright Night.
it was just so weird. It was really weird. It was not like, and Fury of the Wolfman is probably a pretty bad example because of all of the Wolfman movies, that one is sort of like the lamest, if you ask
Yeah,
me.
I agree.
I love Assignment Terror, of course, which was also no, wait a minute. It was Fury of the Wolfman that was Mark of the Werewolf, I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Um, but anyway, and also the next thing I saw was probably this one, Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman, because they used to show that on TV a lot.
Yeah.
And, it was one of those movies every time it was on, no matter where I was, what I was doing, I had to make sure I commandeered a television. Because remember, you had to wait until they showed it. You
Right.
couldn't just put it on anytime you wanted. Like you had to scour the TV guide and like wait until they showed it. So
Yeah.
I made sure I was there and I was watching Werewolf versus Vampire Woman because I loved vampires. I was all about vampires when I was a kid, and Werewolf was a very close second. So two of them in the same movie. Wow.
Oh yeah. I think he did 12 werewolf movies with this character, Valdemar Daninsky.
And at least 5 of them with this very plot that we're about to see. I think he did this. I can think of 3 films off the top of my head that had this same plot. There was the one that came later, Night of the Werewolf, aka The Craving.
Yes.
And also Curse of the Devil, aka
Oh yeah.
I forget what the original title of Curse of the Devil was. Night of the Werewolf? Or no, that was the other one that I just said.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but yeah, he had a thing
Was it The
for
Return of the Werewolf?
possibly.
Yeah.
He had a thing for just doing the same sort of plot, and then there was the Werewolf and the Yeti, where there's also sort of like this. It's not. It does go off in weird directions, but it also has this same kind of like there's a female. They're these cannibal women who live in a cave and drink people's blood and eat their flesh. So he had to get like the Countess Bathory thing in there somehow.
Yeah. I think this is the 5th of his werewolf movies. And he had all that. He was, I think he had seen Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman on TV. And he was kind of blown away by that and decided that's what I want to do with my life. And so for Spain, he did that. I mean, he became Valdemar Daninsky, the Wolfman and the werewolf. Um, and he made all these amazing films where he got to play all these monsters. He got to be with all these women. I mean,
That was important.
right? Who wouldn't be able to set them? Who wouldn't want to set themselves up and be able to do that?
Lots of backlit nightgowns in those films, women
Yeah,
walking around in places no one with a brain would be, like a graveyard or a crypt with a lighted candelabra, and here comes the werewolf. And there had to be a scene where they were in bed with Paul Naschy.
right. So, Bill, if it's okay with you, can we jump through the cast a little bit? I don't have a ton of information here, but
Yeah, go for it.
all right. So we have Gabby Fuchs, who plays Elvira. Um, she's sort of like the main chick in this movie. She was in Mark of the Devil with Herbert Lom, and that was about the witch hunts. My parents saw that movie back in 1970. I still have the vomit bag that they gave out at the theaters with the
Wow.
logo of the film on it.
I have one too, but it didn't. I mean, nobody I knew was at a screening of it and brought it home.
Oh yeah.
I bought it on eBay.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Yeah, my parents were nutty. I told you they took me to these movies, and you almost kicked me off the show. But
Yeah, you're getting close again, Re-Gor.
jumping down the list here of the actors, most of them were in Spanish films that I don't know about, so I can't speak to them. So I'm going to talk about the ones that I can speak to. Excuse me. Barda Barry played Muller, who was in Horror Express, which Christopher Lee was in, as well as Peter Cushing, and Dr. Jekyll versus the Werewolf, which was another Paul Naschy film. And Patty Shepard played Countess Wandessa Darvula de Nadesty. I don't know how I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, she was in Crypt of the Living Dead with Andrew Prine, and she was in the slasher flick from 1988, Edge of the Axe, which I had never heard of before, but I saw it this past year in your stomping grounds there at the Riverside Drive-In at the April Ghouls Drive-In Monsterama back in April this past year. So
Wasn't that a night?
it was amazing. Were you there?
Yeah, I was there.
Oh man, I didn't even
think
know
that's
you
where
were
I met
there.
you.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Isn't that where I met you? You were interviewing George and Gene.
Yes, yeah.
I just saw you for like half a second. Gene said, "This is my friend Re-Gor." This is Re-Gor.
Re-Gor. If it's not, it's Re-Gor. No, it's Igor. So, do you have anything else about the cast? I'm sorry. Julio Pena played Dr. Hardwick, who was the coroner. He was also in Horror Express, which Horror Express is a great movie. Have you covered that one already?
I think we did that one too
Okay.
on the show. Yeah, it's
All right.
stunning, absolutely stunning.
Yeah. Is there anyone else in the cast that jumps out to you?
Well, Patty Shepard was sort of like a vampire woman goddess after this movie. There was even some talk that she might replace Barbara Steele as a scream queen. That's how enthusiastic her reception was after making this film. But obviously that didn't happen. And she did work a lot. And you mentioned she was in Crypt of the Living Dead and Edge of the Axe. She was also in Slugs.
Oh,
Which is another. We did that on the show too.
oh, nice.
So another Spanish film.
Yeah.
And poor thing, she died in 2013, so she's
Oh,
gone.
Yeah. Now this movie. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say this movie supposedly follows the events of Fury of the Wolfman that you and I had talked about, but I think it's more. You can enjoy this film better if you just take it as a sequel to the first werewolf film that Naschy did.
It didn't matter. I mean, like he's shot at the beginning of this movie, and that's all you need to know. There's a guy with silver bullets in him, and gee, wouldn't it be weird if we pulled the silver bullets out and saw what happened? So that's really all you need to know.
What I liked about this movie, though, and I don't want to get too much into it because I'm going to watch it again, and I'm sure some of the viewers haven't seen it. But a lot of stuff is shot in slow motion, so it gives it this ethereal, kind of otherworldly look about it, which I think is great. I really love that.
Amen, Gigi Graham. Gigi Graham's going to be on the show next weekend.
Oh, nice.
And I've already revealed what those two films are going to be. But in case anybody forgot, I'll save the suspense for the third segment comeback. And you can see the trailers of the two films we're going to watch on next week's broadcast with Gigi. And probably Sam will be back by then, too, because we miss him.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. You know, and there's a scene in this movie. I'm not going to say it again to ruin it for those who haven't seen it, but it definitely inspired Armando de Osorio to write The Tombs of the Blind Dead. You know, there's this. I don't know if I should say it, but there's a creature in this film that looks like one of the blind dead.
Yeah, you know, if you look up one of the trivia items on IMDb, somebody claimed that Armando de Osorio was inspired by that character to make the Blind Dead series, which, you know, I buy it. I can see it. I think he definitely and gee, it wouldn't be like Armando de Osorio to steal an idea from somebody, would it?
Right.
So I believe it.
Now, the thing, though, that I thought was interesting was, you know, with these movies, with Paul Naschy films, let's just say, don't count on continuity. We've been trying to wrestle our way around the continuity, but, you know, in the last movie, in Fury of the Wolfman, he's a college professor, and in this one, he's just this dude. He's a count that owns a castle. So you can't really...
You don't go into a vegan restaurant and order steak tartare, and you don't come to a Paul Naschy film expecting some kind of like plot that you can really sink your teeth into. No, this is all about recreating those same shocks that he experienced when he watched the original Universal monster films, only with like a really jazzed up gore and sex factor.
Yes.
So and you know, Hammer Films sort of got the ball rolling on all of that for these Spanish films, but the Spanish films went even further than the British films did with the sex and the violence, and that's what made it so appealing for these films to be released in the United States. I mean, a lot of them did. We already mentioned The People That Own the Dark and Vampire's Night Orgy, another film directed by Leon Klimovsky. That played U.S. theaters for years under the title Grave Desires.
That's right, yeah.
And there was a Naschy film that you mentioned, Dracula's Great Love, that played as Cemetery Girls. And those two films were purchased, the distribution rights were purchased by Motion Picture Marketing, MPM, the notorious distributors, and they just put those out over and over again with all these sexy model images and the ads, and it didn't have anything to do with the actual movie, but people still went to see them, and they, because they had a lot of sex and violence in them, so it made it perfect for U.S. drive-ins and grindhouses. Right.
And this movie's got a lot of suspense. It's got a really dark and moody atmosphere. You know, I'm so looking forward to rewatching this again because I just love how as much as Naschy repeats himself in the movies that we talked about, I think he knows how to craft a good horror movie, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I don't care that it's the same plot over and over. I mean, there wasn't really that much to work with the palette that he chose, which was these, there's that word again, hoary. These hoary sort of cliches. These cliches that he was playing with, that's what it was about, and it was about making a buck too, because people wanted to go see that. So he wanted the films to be profitable, of course. So more power to him.
Real quick, Bill, I have a couple props here that I just wanted to swing by you. Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay. So When Bill and I talked about this, and you and I think it was Sam picked this movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, I was like, "Oh, I have that movie. I know I have that movie." So I looked at my DVD shelf the other day, and I was like, "Why can't I find it? Why can't I find it?" Well, I did a little digging, and I did find it. I found it 4 times over. I have it on this one, The Legends of Horror 50 movie disc. I have it on this other one, Gore and More. I'm from New England, so it's Gore and More.
I
There you
love that
go.
art. That's from Werewolf in a Girl's Dormitory.
That's right. Yep. And then I have it also on this one. Oh, wait, I'll show you that one last. I've got it on this one, which is Midnight Monster Movies Werewolves. And this has the Dean Stockwell, poor Dean Stockwell. Let's take a moment of silence for him. He just passed away. He was in the Werewolf of Washington. That's on here, as well as Werewolf. I don't have my reading glasses. In a Girl's Dormitory and Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman. So God rest your soul, Dean. And then this is the one that I knew I had, but I forgot that it was a double feature until I looked it up. And it's The Screaming Skull and The Werewolf versus the
I
Vampire
have
Woman.
that one.
Yeah. And they're all of different running times. So I don't know which one you've had a chance to post there, Bill. But the one I found on YouTube is actually an hour and a half, which is the longest. All of these ones that I just showed you guys run from like 82 to 86 minutes, somewhere around there.
Well, I would have liked to have shared the link that you came up with, but I don't know if you listened to it, but the audio track is in Spanish. So
Too bad.
so I chose not to
Sorry.
link to that because probably most of our viewers aren't fluent in Spanish.
No,
And
yeah. I know I'm not.
besides, the public domain US dub of this film is the one that that's the one I prefer, even though I like seeing the more complete versions of these movies. There's something about that tinny audio track that really
Yeah.
turns me on. I hope everybody else agrees too when you watch this.
Ooh,
The cheaper it is, the better, as far as I'm concerned. And I was, I already mentioned I'm a big Naschy fan, and when Anchor Bay started reissuing all these movies in the '90s and the early 2000s on DVD, of course I bought them. And one of the ones I bought was Curse of the Devil. The one, I think that was the one that came after the one we're going to watch tonight.
yeah.
And are we back?
You're back.
How strange. It's the forces of Countess Wandessa
Oh no.
telling us to hurry up and get to her movie. Just a minute, Wandessa. So,
Bathory.
Wandessa Bathory. Nadinsky, Narusha, Mariska Hargitay. So I don't even remember what I was saying before we were interrupted by the spirits.
The one that I picked had Spanish language, and you
Oh right, yeah.
doesn't.
Well, I was talking about Curse of the Devil. I got this like beautiful, cleaned up DVD from Anchor Bay, and I didn't like it. I was bummed out because the audio track was so crystal clear and so restored that it just sort of robbed me of that nostalgia. So I do enjoy when companies restore that. I would never discourage that, but give us the original cheap audio track too, please,
Yeah.
if at all possible.
So, all right. So, which version do you recommend we watch? The 86-minute or the 84-minute? Then.
Well, I don't know. I linked to one of them, and I can't remember which one. So
Okay. All right. Cool.
But we have business to attend to before we get to the movie. First, we have to do the second cocktail, which
That's right.
Sam has named El Hombre Lobo Paloma. El Hombre Lobo Paloma. And as we promised, we're going back to the tequila.
Nice.
And it's just that kind of night when you're hanging out with werewolves and vampire women and cannibals. We're gonna do 2 ounces of tequila, and I hope. Wow, I'm getting pretty low. on this
Uh-oh.
tequila.
Wait, that tequila was not that low earlier.
Well, it is now. I pre-salted my glass. Okay.
Oh,
So
nice.
if you want to be authentic, you have to have the salted rim. Um, so we're just going to do 2 ounces of tequila. Wait, yeah, it is 2. I have to keep clicking back and forth between the screens. I am this show's producer as well, and it happens live as I'm on the air.
And you're producing us a drink, so we're good. We're appreciative.
Okay, so 2 ounces of tequila. Now we're going to do 4 ounces. Oh, we're just going to mix this in the glass, by the way, so no shaker for this. 4 ounces red grapefruit juice. Where's my red? Here's another thing. You know, if anyone's interested in a container of ruby red grapefruit juice, I can't even say it.
Great food.
Hit me up because I have something that's almost brand new and unused, except for 4 ounces that we're going to pour into this drink.
Slightly used is the term I think you used.
So yeah, I promise I didn't put my lips on the jug or anything. You can see it all happen right here. We're going to do 4 ounces of this. And I hate grapefruit. But I'm doing it because Sam said so. If Sam says it, I do it. Okay, so now we're up to the squirt. 2 ounces. 2 ounces. The soda. 2 ounces of squirt grapefruit soda. And
wait, you already put grapefruit juice in. You're gonna put grapefruit soda in there?
I didn't come up with this recipe.
Okay.
I wouldn't put this much grapefruit in anything. Okay, so we're going to do 2 ounces. Oh, and by the way, if anyone's interested in a 2-liter of squirt soda, minus about 2 ounces, hit me up after the show. This is high quality entertainment, I'm sure. And I didn't charge anybody a penny for this. Okay, so now we're up to a half an ounce of lime juice. This would probably be going a lot faster if there wasn't already a couple cocktails. We're going to do half an ounce. It's one of those friggin' things that you can't open. I hate these things.
There's too much work involved.
It's one of these little fake. Good thing I happen to have a paper clip right here. All right, so.
Oh, I remember those.
Try not to squirt yourself with lime juice like I just did. Half an ounce.
With the lime and the coconut and shake it all about.
It had to be said, right? So also, there was something else. What is it? Oh, a teaspoon of sugar helps this medicine go down. I pre-measured it. Sorry. You don't get to see me try and pour sugar over this couch that I'm sitting on. And now the one thing I forgot to do was bring a stirrer. Let me see if I can find one.
He's going to find the castor oil. He's going to
it would
add
be gross
castor
if
oil.
I stirred it with a comb?
Like a comb that you'd comb your hair with?
Yes.
Ew.
Okay, so I'm just not going to stir it.
Like an ice cream cone. You could
do. Okay, now we can put some ice in this baby because, I like it ice cold.
Ice, baby.
Here we go. This is it.
Nice.
El Hombre Lobo Paloma.
Nice.
So says Sam Panico. And cheers to you all. Here's to this supernatural smackdown we're about to witness. The werewolf versus the vampire woman. Only one can win. So, cheers.
So excited. Nozdrova.
Mm, it's delicious. And it would
Nice.
probably be a lot better if it was stirred.
So, Bill, next time I'm going to have to get these recipes well in advance. I did my simple, what I do, vodka and club soda, no ice, no lime.
Well, it does help to have all the ingredients in advance. So, yeah, you don't have to drink, but we definitely encourage it.
Oh, come on. It's a prerequisite. I'm kidding, of course.
I've also got some ads to show you
Oh, good.
for the werewolf versus the vampire woman. Now, I have to get rid of the overlay. There's the producer
Oh,
again.
Bill,
What?
real quick before you jump into that, I just wanted to mention that I found actually in these 4 DVDs, 2 of them say the werewolf versus the vampire woman, singular, and 2 of them say the werewolf versus the vampire women, plural.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. Did you find that in any of your ads?
Oh, every ad or every depiction of this film has a different version of that title.
Oh,
So,
interesting. Okay.
I think the point was nobody cared. It's kind of like the continuity that we talked about and the details of the script and everything and the story and everything. That wasn't the point. So, Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman. It was released in Spain in 1971. It didn't come to the States till 72. Of course, Texas was the first place I found it playing. And because they
Of
got
course.
all the good shit first. And this promised things happen that have never been seen by human beings. Which, what could that possibly mean? While you're thinking about that, maybe you could consider the fact that, Wandessa just came back from the dead and she probably needs, a few of her urges satisfied, if you know what I mean. And, he's
Her
fine when he's
lusty.
Paul Nashy, but when he's a werewolf, that's a different story altogether. And here they call him Paul Nash. How rude.
That's funny.
I
Not even the C.
Those easily nauseated approach with caution. Um, Here it is with Night of the Living Dead. This movie is pretty gory, I have to say. There's a lot of blood flowing in this movie. Not particularly convincing, but the spirit of it is just gruesome.
There you go.
Battle of the Demons, a dose of hell. Now that's pushing it.
Who's Edgar Cullen Allen Poe?
It's Poe's cousin.
Oh, okay.
I love these ads for the Acme Drive-In. Look at this. This is stunning. I
Night of the Witches.
want this plastered on the inside of my coffin lid so that just
There
in
you
case
go.
I'm stuck down there looking at something. Here it is with Blackenstein, aka Black Frankenstein. Absolute gorgeous piece of ad art. And here we go again. Things happen that have never been seen by human beings. So that's a pretty stunning set of ads, I think.
That's amazing. Good job, man. Those are great.
Now, I do have something interesting also to show, but I have to kind of stall for time while I find it
Ah,
because, of course, the producers of this program didn't provide it for me the way I needed it. Okay, so here it is. Now, in 1973, we already saw this movie debuted in the States in 1972, but in 1973, there was sort of like this press junket thing that was going around the AP of
oh
this
yeah, I saw
woman,
that one. I've seen that one. Yeah.
Pamela Day, supposedly an actor. Now, I can't find her IMDb listing anywhere. So, and I can't find anything else about her, Pamela Day. Um, she doesn't look too much like Linda Day. So maybe she's Linda Day's sister. I don't know.
The Day George.
She claims to be in this movie, Werewolf versus
Huh.
the Vampire Woman. And it's, hello, we know she wasn't. This is
Right.
not Patty Shepard by any means.
Right.
And I just can't figure out like where she's coming from with this. Is she just somebody that faked these people out? They were doing these press pieces on her, or it was she really involved somehow in the American promotion of Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman? I don't know.
I don't know. I have the same article because I was doing the same kind of research as you were, and I just ignored it. I just thought it was, you know,
Yeah,
tangentially. I just said genitally, tangentially related.
I got excited there for a minute. I thought we were finally getting into some interesting territory on the Drive and Asylum double feature, but no.
I was trying to use some kind of an adverb, but excuse me. That yeah, I just sort of ignored that, so I didn't actually read the article. So, what does it say?
She just talks about how strange it is to play a vampire, and she felt like she really was one. And then she goes on to give a little bit of 70s woo about ESP. So
ESPN? No, I'm kidding.
the whole psychic thing, maybe she went to
Yeah, yeah,
Yuri.
yeah.
Maybe she saw Yuri Geller bending some spoons back in the day.
Oh, interesting. Oh, dude, do you have a second for a total sidebar?
I think now that you set it up, there's no way that we can't do it. So let's do it.
So, I just recently watched the newest Conjuring movie, The Devil Made Me Do It.
Yeah.
And have you seen it?
I haven't. No.
Okay. This doesn't ruin the film, but in the film, there's a courtroom scene that involves demonology and ghosts and all that. And the whole thing is based on a true story. So I was like, how true is this? I don't remember hearing about a court thing that involved all this crap. So I looked it up. It was real. I found an article and I haven't posted it yet, but I found a 10 part article about the whole storyline of the film. So whether it was real or not, whether you believe in Amityville and Conjuring and all that stuff or whatever, there really was published a whole 10 part article about what went on in that movie. And I have to say, I personally was blown away by the fact that it like I could validate that it really at least was reported in real life.
Sure. Well, that was the Warrens for you.
Right.
The Warrens, they made a whole career out of that. And
Yeah.
the funny thing about the Amityville Horror, I mean, I don't know about the ones that is the Conjuring is based on, but the Amityville Horror obviously was a hoax, and it was admitted to be a hoax by everybody involved in it, including the Lutzes. They denied it and they denied it, and then there was this one moment where they let the guard down when they thought the interest in the Amityville Horror had waned, and then they were like, well, yeah. And what really happened was they were underwater in their mortgage, and their lawyer came over, and they were trying to figure out a way to get out from under this house. And he was like, well, we'll have somebody write a book about it. Like, we'll report all these demonic activities, and maybe we can get somebody to write a book about it. Bam, Jay Anson's book, The Amityville Horror. It makes a whole bunch of money.
Tell me about that.
And the Warrens come in and like oh yes, something terrible happened, which something did. I mean, there was a murder in the house.
Oh, the whole Ronald DeFeo thing is real.
That was real. But it was just another house that a murder happened. Those are everywhere, unfortunately.
Right.
But the Warrens made a career out of that. They just declared themselves experts in this field, and the more people started to talk about this stuff, they were looking for experts for things like TV shows, newspaper articles, and there were the Warrens, like, oh hi, we're experts. We got our degree at the Demonology Institute. So
I found this is a whole other topic. You know what? In fact, you and I should do a show on that, because I found tons and tons of articles about the Warrens going back to 52 when they started their little paranormal research society or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to discuss that,
They're just faith healers, they're like they're in the same business as faith healers, televangelists. We can do magical things. Just listen to us for a while. And the Warrens were really lucky that the Conjuring series took off. Now there's all this interest in them again.
Right,
He's dead, but she's still alive, I think.
right,
Is
right.
she still
Yeah,
alive,
she is. Yeah, she is.
Lorraine Warren? Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, good for her, good for them, I should say, because they made a really interesting career out of that stuff. So,
Well,
yeah,
the guy that plays him in the movie is like way better looking in real life than than what's his name, Ed Warren was.
of course. Ed Warren would want it that way, I'm sure. I
I
want
want to be
someone
the
hot
heroic guy.
playing me, not someone that really looks like me.
Right, right. I just thought it was funny, whether or not it's real or not. I just thought it was really interesting to find an article that it's sort of like it was exactly what the movie was about. I mean, obviously, you can go back and take an old article from a newspaper and make it into a movie. Anyone can do that, but it was just really interesting. I just found it really interesting.
Sure, yeah. Well, that was the 70s for you, that was just all. Were these articles from the 70s? I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd have to look them up. I'll send them to you afterwards. But yeah, I think they were. Well, no, because it was like 82 or 86 when this happened with this kid who was basically
Oh,
the
there you
kid
go.
in the movie and in real life was possessed by a demon. He killed his landlord, and that was his defense because the
Yeah.
Warrens kind of put him up to it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting because when you go back and read the articles, the Warrens are really downplayed. Yeah, they showed up and stuff, but they weren't a main part of the story as they were in the modern film. So,
Well, the Warrens had nothing to do with our second feature this evening, the werewolf versus the vampire woman, although I'm sure they would love to claim that they did. Um, this does involve Satanism to some degree, so I guess she
mm.
could wiggle in there. Maybe Mike Warnke can claim he had something to do with this. Do you remember Mike Warnke?
I've heard the name, but I can't recall at this
He
point in the night.
he was an evangelist that wrote a book in the 70s called The Satan Seller, and it was all when Satanism was first starting to be written about and discussed, and the satanic. He basically
And it's panic.
he single-handedly started it with this book called The Satan Seller, and he claimed to be he made all these outrageous claims in it. He said he was a satanic high priest and that he had participated. He was really careful never to say he performed any ritual sacrifice, but that he attended ritual sacrifices.
Huh.
Apparently, the actual sacrificing was left to people that were not the high priests. And
The
he
low
made
priests.
himself out to be like this expert on Satanism. And then there were two Christian journalists that were writing a story for a magazine called Cornerstone. And they were going to do this profile on Mike Warnke. And he'd been in business for decades. Like the police would consult with him about satanic activity, cult activity in their jurisdiction. And Mike Warnke was really famous about this, and these guys wanted to write an article, and they basically debunked the entire story that he had told, and they found out, yeah, none of that stuff really ever happened, and this was just a crazy book he wrote, and he was just off to the races, talking all this stuff on talk shows, and preaching and collecting money for his ministry and everything, and so Mike Warnke would definitely want to claim something to do with this movie tonight. Countess Wandesa, when you see her satanic altar, she looks like she shops at Spencer Gifts in your local mall. So yeah. So anyway, we hope you'll come back after the movie to discuss it with us here on the Drive-In Asylum double feature. Oh, wait a minute. That's not what I want to do. I am going to
And I will be back, and I won't pause my computer, so I'll be on time.
Oh, yeah, don't give me another heart attack. I thought I was going to have to do the second
Sorry.
segment by myself.
I apologize to the listeners and the viewers and all that.
Oh, that's okay. It gives people time to go to the bathroom.
Exactly. Have a smoke break, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, now I finally got the right video queued up. And we'll be back after the movie to talk about Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman right here on the Drive-In Asylum double feature. I'll see you then.
I am so psyched. Let's do it.